2022 Planning Commission to order. Madam Clerk, will you do a roll call?
Commissioner Glenn,
Here.
Commissioner Allen,
Here.
Commissioner Chesbro. Yay! Commissioner Rubio will be a little late. Commissioner Kendig,
Here.
Commissioner Glashen,
Present.
Commissioner Scoggin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda? Any objection to approving the agenda as written? Seeing and hearing none, the agenda is approved. Mr. Weisenhunt, would you do us the honors tonight?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, tonight on the consent agenda, we have the regular meeting minutes from July 18th, 2022. We have no introductions for quasi-judicial. We do have an introduction for legislative matters. Resolution 22-25, resolution of the Matanuska-Susitna Planning Commission recommending the approval of an ordinance repealing MSB 17.05 essential service utilities. Public hearing is scheduled for August 15th. Staff is Mr. Strawn. Is there any objection to approving the consent agenda as written? Seeing and hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. All right, so it looks like Ms. Anderson, you're up for a staff report.
Hello, thanks for having me, Commissioners. My name is Kelsey Anderson, and for the past year and a half or so, I have been kind of working as the Capital Improvement Program Coordinator for the Matsu Borough. So when I started here about a year and a half ago, I was essentially charged to look into the history of the Capital Improvement Program and then where we're at now and kind of try to come up with some recommendations for how to move the program forward in a little bit more of a useful way. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is not so much the history of the CIP, but I'm just going to go over what I changed and what you can expect to see in October when we have the manager present the new list to you and the assembly in December. So one of the first things I did was I looked at all the old CIP lists. And for those of you who aren't familiar with capital improvement programming for the borough's sake or just as the program in general, what it has been, well, it's been many things throughout the years, but it's essentially the communities, primarily out of community councils, can nominate public infrastructure projects for the borough to consider building. We see a lot of things like trails, libraries, and in the past, it's primarily turned into a transportation wish list that we're trying to work through. So I first started looking at the most recent CIP list, and they've ranged from 5 projects all the way up to 400 projects at one point in time. So, well, we kind of have a big mess on our hands with the CIP. So I guess the major change that I presented to Director Strawn and Kim was that I thought that we needed to provide criteria that actually defined what a capital improvement project is for the borough, so that as we're receiving these nominations from community councils and even internally through department priorities, that we can actually say, is this a capital project or is it not? So the criteria that I came up with for the CIP, that from here going forward, we're going to rank, or we're going to evaluate all incoming project nominations first on these 5 criteria, and then they'll go forward to like a scoring committee. The criteria are that it must fall within borough powers to execute. So the reasoning behind this first and very important criteria is that the borough didn't really have the power to do or fulfill a lot of the capital improvement program projects. Like I said, it kind of turned into this transportation wish list. So wanted to move away from that and give kind of this support to the communities that says, if your nomination comes through and we have the power to do it, we're going to think about actually putting this forward. So yeah, the first, it has to fall within borough powers. The second is that it can't be considered routine maintenance or equipment replacement. The manager felt it was really important that we aren't using a list like the CIP for things like new trucks for emergency services and things that really ought to be a part of the operations budget. So the third is that it must have a useful life of 5 years or more. And the fourth is a single acquisition cost of $20,000. Basically, what we're looking at here is that you're providing a public service, a public benefit. So something that's going to be around for a while, and something that community councils might not actually have the money to provide for themselves. So they're either looking for matched funds or for the borough to take up this project. And finally, the last, and this is a really important connection that the borough had kind of been missing, or that I saw it was missing, is that throughout my research in developing this new plan, I realized that nationwide communities are using capital improvement programs to implement their comprehensive plans. So the fifth and final criteria that all projects have to meet before they're considered a valid CIP nomination is that the project has to align with a goal or objective from an assembly adopted plan. So that includes things like our borough-wide, all of the community comprehensive plans, master trails plans, things like that. So today is actually the day that we have started evaluating projects. With this new process, we are now accepting CIP nominations on a rolling basis, which means communities can nominate any time that they come up with a good idea. But it's August 1st of every year going forward that we're actually going to evaluate those. So I put together a scoring committee that consists of someone from Public Works, Land Management, Finance, Emergency Services, and Planning. And we have the month of August to score these projects. And then, according to our code, the manager has to be ready to present the CIP to the Planning Commission in October and the Assembly in December. So as of now, I haven't done the evaluation against the new criteria, but we have 5 projects, which is like 120 less than was on the 2021 CIP list. So yeah, I mean, like, the goal is to have this very manageable, small list of community supported projects that we can present to you and present to the Assembly, and hopefully, you know, the policymakers and the decision makers feel as though they can, I don't know, it's always kind of a pie in the sky, but like, if there is money in a capital budget, or if there is a project that someone's willing to take on and support, that they can look to the CIP and see that it has already been evaluated and scored and shows public support, so that they can move it forward if they so choose. So I can answer any questions you have about the CIP, but I just wanted to get you all ready for the fact that you'll be seeing it here in just a couple months.
Thank you. For the record, Commissioner Rubio arrived at 6:07. Do we have any questions for Ms. Anderson? Commissioner Chesbro?
Well, thank you. I think this makes a lot of sense. Can you give me an example of a project that would not be within the power of the borough? Because I think that's kind of I would like to know at least.
Yep. So essentially, any road project, any project that would require us to acquire right-of-way or to design or construct something that, do you want to, Alex looks like he wants to take it.
Well, I would, so we do not have borough-wide road powers, but we do have transportation powers on a non-area-wide basis. So within the road service areas where people have voted to give us road powers in those certain areas. But if we're talking about like a regional connector, which would be a new road, or if it's outside of an RSA, then that's the type of project that we would have to go to the voters to get the power. We don't have that power as of right now. DOT roads as well. Yeah. Or like the Kinnick Arm Bridge would be an example of something that was on the CIP, which we certainly don't have the power to do or build. It would not make this new, more manageable list.
Any other questions for Ms. Anderson? I've just got one. Why did you come up with a 5-year design life for a capital facility?
Oh, here we go. So the 5-year useful life is essentially, well, the easy answer is that I looked at CIPs nationwide and I looked at their definitions of capital improvement project, and that was the average. That's the same with $20,000. But the reasoning behind it is just you're looking for something that's going to not be a one-off, like passion project or something that's going to only impact a really small amount of people. You're looking for something that, like a library, that's going to stick around and provide a useful existence and benefit to a community for, longer than 5 years.
Okay, and my point was more to 5 years is very short.
Mhm.
FHWA funding for repairs, it has to survive at least 5 years, and that's for kind of an emergency thing. So I'd kind of consider, especially if we're going to fund these with bonds, to look at longer term lifespans of these, because it takes the borough a while to pay back bonds.
Mhm. So, and I guess, and maybe Director Swan, if you, or Strawn, if you want to jump in, but I would say that the goal of the updated CIP process is to not fund it by bonds. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions for Ms. Anderson? Thank you. You're off the hook. All right. We move on to audience participation. Any person wishing to speak for 3 minutes for items not scheduled for public hearing tonight. Tonight we have PC Resolution 22-22, PC Resolution 22-24, PC Resolution 22-19, PC Resolution 22-23. So any member of the audience who'd like to speak on something other than those, we do have one person signed up, and I'm going to take a wild guess. Thornton Bauer? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else, or is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on up to 3 minutes on an item not scheduled for public hearing tonight? Do we have anybody online? We do. Online, is there somebody who would like to speak?
Hello, greetings, commissioners. This is Amber McDonough. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have 3 minutes to speak on any item that's not up for discussion tonight.
Excellent. Thank you. My name is spelled McDonough. My husband and I are 20-year landowners in the Fishhook area with a vested interest in responsible development that preserves our community's character. The resolution introduced today, 2205, to repeal the Mat-Su Borough 1705 for essential service utilities is a golden opportunity. 1705 was recently put to the test during the Mat-Su Planning Department's review of Matanuska Association's Fishhook to Pittman Power Project. This project was publicly unveiled in May 2021. However, the project impact greatly increased this past September when MEA announced a northern route with over 10 remote miles of 100-foot wide right-of-way clearing across the floodplains, wetlands, and farmlands north of the Little Sioux River. Hundreds of Mat-Su residents participated in the 1705 process from MEA's initial open house through the utility's final appeals hearing in April 2022. Ultimately, 1705 failed Mat-Su residents because it only empowered the planning department to confirm MEA completed the required public participation. It did not ensure the utility's decisional document incorporated all feasible mitigation measures to enhance the welfare of borough residents and properties while minimizing negative impacts. In fact, 1705 allowed MEA to conceal the nature of public feedback it received until after it had submitted its decisional document to the planning department. This was despite over 90% of comments being against the northern route, as noted by Assemblyman Jesse Sumner. Also, 1705 did not require this major utility project impacting thousands of residents to be reviewed by either the Planning Commission or the Assembly before the planning department granted final project approval. Meanwhile, other projects with much smaller footprints, such as cell towers, marijuana shops, and gravel pits, all require MSB conditional use of permits. Without 1705, there is no other forum for Mat-Su residents to voice their concerns about the impacts of infrastructure projects or influence utilities to adopt mitigation measures. Therefore, instead of a complete repeal of 1705, it would be best if the Commission drafted an amendment to fix the code's flaws. Based on our experience crafting 1705 to align with other existing MSB conditional use permits would better protect the public interests as well as private property rights. I'd be happy to suggest improvements to this resolution prior to its hearing on August 15th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else online? All right, caller, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Camden Yaley, and I would also like to speak on Resolution 22-25. So it sounds like that's really scheduled for next meeting, and I'll be speaking on the importance of public process and the reduction of costs to the borough if we do good public process. But I'll do my testimony next time. during the
Ma'am,
public
we're
hearing.
having a hard time hearing you. Can you hear me?
Is that a little better?
That sounds better.
Hi, my name is Camden Yaley, and I actually also wanted to speak on Resolution 22-25. And I just wanted to speak about the importance of public process and how it can actually reduce costs to the borough, whereas oftentimes the perception and misunderstanding is that it actually costs the borough and utilities more money, which is not the case. But I'll save my comments for the hearing next time. I was just thinking the hearing was today, not next time. So I'll save it.
All right, thank you. Do we have anyone else online?
Yes, my name is Beverly. My name is Beverly Cutler. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Ms. Cutler.
Bev Cutler, last name Cutler. I am a Mat-Su Borough farm parcel owner, actually from the 70s, up on the Palmer side of Hatcher Path. Also would like to, I understand this was early in the game as far as this repeal of the 1705 is concerned, but I would like to support everything Amber McDonough just said about let us make the ordinance better, not destroy it. And I would like to comment at this time, not wait until August 15th, about the point that seems to be in the memorandum suggesting this repeal, that it's somehow just too expensive to allow people to comment, which seems pretty backwards for the values we hold dear in our community. We have had community councils, we have had MSB comprehensive plans, and when a utility line is going to be put somewhere, certainly the public ought to be able to comment on what parts of the proposed routes or necessity are or are not consistent with the existing plans that we all work so hard to get past. When the memorandum suggested that somehow it was too expensive, I thought, what? Somehow it's too expensive to have a Zoom account to let people make comments? And of course, it's not just letting people make comments, it's requiring the utility and the borough as well to swallow those comments and at least put them into their thinking for what should be the path going forward. We understand the public can't control the path going forward, but it certainly should have input, if not we don't really have any sort of government by the people, for the people, et cetera, even though a utility is not the government. Certainly a public utility is quasi-government, and we should hopefully continue to allow our public to have input. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else online? Are there any members of the audience that would like to participate in audience participation at this time? Please, you'll have 3 minutes to speak on any item not on the agenda tonight. Please state and spell your last name after you turn on the microphone.
Thank you. Theron Bair, Theron Bair, president of the North Lakes Community Council. By the way, for this portion, I just have a question. My understanding is that this is going to be voted on at the next Planning Commission meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. The public hearing on that ordinance is next meeting.
Is next meeting. Well, next meeting, and then it's voted, because here's the reason I'm asking. We're having I feel like this is the sort of thing my community council will probably want to have a vote on, or something for another resolution at their next board meeting. So, and that's on the 26th. So this will be decided on the 15th, or it will be discussed on the 15th, and then it will be decided at some later time.
The Planning Commission will discuss and make a decision at the next meeting, and then it goes to the Assembly for their approval. They can follow our recommendation. They can do whatever they want.
Okay,
is
so
that scheduled?
So it will be before our next meeting. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's it.
All right. Is there anybody else in the audience or online that would like to participate in audience participation? Is there any objection to closing audience participation? Hearing and seeing none, audience participation is closed. All right, we move on to quasi-judicial matters, the ex parte questions. To the members of the commission, do you or any member of your immediate family have a substantial financial interest in any property affected by this decision, or you recognize a foreseeable profit as a result of this decision? Hearing and seeing none, have you received or otherwise engaged in ex parte contact with the applicant, appellant, other interested parties, or members of the public concerning the application either before, during, or after this matter was submitted for decision? Seeing all no's, are you able to be impartial in this decision? Commissioner Rubio, I can't see you down there? Yes. All right. All right. Resolution PC 22-22, a conditional use permit in accordance with MSB 17.60, conditional uses for marijuana cultivation facility located at 23161 West Ayrshire Avenue. Tax ID 4136B03L004 in Township 16 North, Range 4 West, Section 32, Seward Meridian. The applicant is Brendan Bartlett, doing business as Denali Farms, and his attorney, Jana Weltson. The staff is Ms. Horton. Ms. Horton, would you give us a presentation, please?
Hello, I'm Peggy Horton, Planner 2 with Development Services Division. It's my pleasure to provide you information about the proposed project this evening. The staff report for PC Resolution 22-22 can be found at page 21 of your packet. Brandon Bartlett and attorney Jana Weltsin for Denali Farms submitted a conditional use permit application to operate a marijuana cultivation facility. According to the application material, the proposed use will be wholly contained within a 5,000 square foot building formerly used for grain storage. The subject parcel was a part of a subdivision of Borough land around the south and west sides of Carpenter Lake in 1993. According to Borough assessment data, the land has been in agricultural use off and on, vacant at other times. The structure was built in 1994. The south end of it was shifted to the west in 2018 to comply with the setback standards for cultivation facilities. For the public notice process, we mailed out 23 notices to owners of property within the 600-foot radius and all of Carpenter Lake Addition 1 subdivision property owners and the Point McKenzie Community Council. That was done on May 25th, the same time that it was published in the Frontiersman as a public notice, and the same date that the application was posted on the Borough website for public review and emailed for requests for comments along with the application material to borough departments, outside agencies, and the Point McKenzie Community Council. There's been a correction to the staff report. We received 3 objections, 1 concern to the use by the public. Staff has received no comments from the Community Council. Public comments can be found starting at page 128 of your packet. The application does meet the standards for approval of a conditional use permit to operate a marijuana cultivation facility, with recommendations listed beginning on page 146 of your packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Ms. Horton? Commissioner Chesbro.
I just wonder, do we consider cannabis cultivation as agriculture in this borough? I don't know the answer to that, so that's why I'm asking.
I believe so.
Mr. Weisenhunt seems to be waving his hand.
It does. Yes, it does.
Any other questions? All right, to the applicant, you now have 15 minutes to state your case. Please say your name and spell your last name for the record.
Thank you. Jana Weltzine, Weltzin, attorney for the applicant, and I have Brandon Bartlett here.
Bartlett.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to Peggy for helping us putting together a staff report, but helping us through the application process, as she always does. Brandon and his dad, Brad, have been operating in the borough, another standard cultivation facility since 2018. Since that operation, they've only had 1 smell complaint, and they've rectified that and haven't had any issues since, and that was a few years ago, 3 years ago, I think. So they're very good operators. They know how to keep smell under control. They also have a retail shop in downtown Anchorage, and so that's what they feed their shop is from their cultivation, and hopefully this cultivation that's coming online, if this body approves it. They have no compliance issues. They've always paid their taxes. They've never gotten behind in excise taxes, and they're a father and son kind of just running a business together, and they love the borough, and that's where they've made their home for production. This facility is on a huge acre, 35 acres, and as Peggy pointed out, traditionally this has been used as agricultural land since 1995. They're just excited to provide more employment in the area, and they're hopeful that you'll find your support here. Brandon, did you have anything to add? No? And we're here for questions if you have any. Happy to be here.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Allen?
So you've got a retail facility in Anchorage. You currently have another facility. Where is that located? Maybe I missed that.
Meadow Lakes area off Pittman.
Okay. And so would you then have 2 operating, or would you close that one down?
It just depends on the market, but right now we're planning on operating them both.
Okay. And would you grow different types of products in the 2 different facilities?
Yes. So we're planning on we have like 16 that we've decided on, and kind of like half's going to be at one place and half's going to be at the other. That's
16 strains.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions of the applicant? All right, I will now open the public hearing for PC Resolution 22-22. All right, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak about Resolution 22-22? Seeing none, is there anybody online? All right. Any opposition to closing the public hearing? Seeing and hearing none? I guess there's no reason for responses to comments made during the public hearing. So I will entertain a motion for Resolution PC 22-22. Commissioner Chesbro?
I move Resolution 22-22.
All right, and a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Kendig? Commissioner Chesbro is the maker of the motion. Do you have any comment?
It appears that the applicant has successfully already operating business, and I appreciate that. And it is agricultural land, and it's an agricultural venture, so thank you.
Commissioner Kendig?
Yeah, it appears that they've been running their business without any hiccups, and I'm sure that staff has made sure that they are within all code and state statutes.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the commission? Seeing none, any opposition to passing PC Resolution 22-22? Hearing and seeing none, the resolution is approved as written. We'll try it in a different order this time. PC Resolution 22-24, a conditional use permit in accordance with MSB 17.30, conditional use permit for earth materials extraction activities for the extraction of 42,000 cubic yards of material from 2 extraction sites totaling 4 acres within 4 parcels. The total of 8.35 acres, tax ID 8101B01L002, 8102B01L003, 8102B02L001, and 8102B02L002, located within the Township 18 North, Range 1 East, Section 31, Seward Meridian. Applicant is John Summer of Alaska Frontier Rental. Staff is Ms. Horton, although it appears Mr. Weisenhunt is filling in. I really expected someone to say bingo while I was reading all that. All right, ex parte, to the commission, do you or any member of your immediate family have a substantial financial interest in any property affected by this decision, or will you recognize a foreseeable profit as a result of this decision? Seeing all no's, have you received or otherwise engaged in ex parte contact with the applicant, appellant, other interested parties, or members of the public concerning the application, either before, during, or after this matter was submitted for decision? Seeing all no's, are you able to be impartial in this decision? Seeing all yeses, we'll move forward. Mr. Weisenhunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for the amount of tax IDs on there. I got to tell you, it was pretty challenging to make sure they were all correct on all the documents across the board. So thank you for hitting a home run on that. I will note before I begin, again, Mark Weisenhunt, I'm the planner for the Mat-Su Borough. My applicant is not here tonight. I wasn't able to get a hold of him today. I did try to give him a call about 4 o'clock, so I'm not sure what's going on, if he's having some telephone issues or forgot, or if something else more serious is going on. But since it's scheduled tonight, we're going to move forward. And thank you for your time on those opening comments. Again, Mark Weisenhunt, I was assigned to process this request for a conditional use permit related to Planning Commission Resolution number 22-24, which begins on page 149 of your packet. This gravel pit, this location proposes to extract gravel in the amount of approximately 42,000 cubic yards from the 4 parcels as read into the record through 2030. And what is happening with this parcel, the history is it was a larger parcel. They were developing it. They subdivided it, put in a road, and they had an excess amount of gravel. And as you've seen through the photos within your packet, I'm not sure what the page number is right offhand, but what you saw was a road bisecting the 4 lots and 2 large piles of gravel that effectively have to leave the parcels in order for them to develop it commercially at an appropriate level. And so that's what they're asking to do here. This isn't the typical request that we get, which is usually a large parcel and they want to take a mountain down or they want to dig a hole for something else. This is just they want to further develop the property and the gravel's got to go. And in order to be able to sell that, they have to get this conditional use permit, which is why it's before you tonight. So we started our public notice process, which is shown on page 152 of your packet. We mailed out notices to all property owners within half a mile And to the North Lakes Community Council, a total of 266 notices were mailed out on May 25th, 2022. We also published this notice on May 27th in the Frontiersman, and we put it on the borough's website on May 19. And we did request comments from various agencies and the North Lakes Community Council via an email on May 20th, 2022. We originally had this scheduled to be heard on July 18th, as you saw on your previous agendas. However, there was no quorum, so we had to push it back to tonight, August 1. And so we sent out another round of notifications in June, and those details are also noted on page 152 of your packet. So you do have some handouts today. North Lakes Community Council did adopt a resolution, and they provided it today. It's in opposition of the proposed use, and they do note some concerns on there, which I'll let you go through some of those items. There are some concerns for this particular location. It's a little bit challenging. It's on the intersection of Bogard and Selden, where Bogard turns. I'm sure you've seen it on the map. And so the proposal is to stay away from the Bogard side, which is the south and east portion, that access, which is by the corner store. They're staying away from that. And they're solely going to run their routes through the west and north up to Bogard. And that should help with some of the traffic concerns. And when we reviewed this, we did find that with conditions, they do meet all of the standards. Our recommendation is for approval. That's on page 162 of your packet. And we are recommending 24 conditions. A lot of them are standard gravel extraction conditions as far as keeping the dust down. But we do have some additional conditions, particularly related to the preliminary protection area as identified by ADEC. We do recommend that the applicant survey that protection area and not mine within that. They already have a berm that's already been established before they applied. There's already a berm, a visual and noise berm located within that. So that wouldn't be a part of the operation, but we do propose this condition, prohibit them from extracting within that protection area. There's also some hours of operation restrictions that we're proposing, and several other items, again, which most of those are standards. But with that, I will conclude my presentation and be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Weisenhunt? Mr. Kindig?
So the, underneath the staff recommendations, there's 24 conditions, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that what I'm looking at? I'm just looking for the hours operation marked item.
I believe that is condition 16 and 17. One of which is a general hours of operation condition. I'm happy to read that. It says all extraction activities, including activities that cause noise, dust, or traffic, shall be limited to Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. There is an additional condition that I'm recommending to the commission, which is 17, specifically related to rock crushing activities. Now, rock crushing can be significantly louder than just general operations, which is loading a truck and driving it out and moving earth. And so we're recommending that that be limited Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., which is more like a business day, and to limit that extra noise to the neighboring residential uses.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Weisenhunt? Mr. Chesbro?
Through the chair, so what they're doing is they're taking the gravel that's already been moved and getting it out of there, right? And they're estimating that it's going to take a long time to do that. And they're estimating that it's going to take from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 days a week to do that. I have no idea how realistic that even is. Is it going to take that long? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much you can do at a time, but it seems like that community council is saying 11 to 3, so which is only 4 hours. I mean, tell me a little bit about how much time it's going to take to get rid of all that gravel.
That is a fantastic question. I'm really happy that you asked that. So The answer to your question is, it depends, right? So the reason why they're asking for 2030 is in case they're only selling it in small loads and small projects, maybe to the community. And if that's the case, it may take them several years to get rid of those piles. And so that's why the longer length. They just want to be ready for that. Instead of asking for 2 years and say, well, wait a minute, we didn't sell us gravel. Let's come back. Let's pay another $1,500 application fee and go back from the commission. They're just trying to get it all in one spot or in one hearing so that they can get the approval for an extended period of time. It is possible that they get a road project and they can sell this in one whack in one summer, and that they get it all out of there, which is why I suspect they asked for the longer hours so that they could feed a need for a potential large road project. And in that case, it could be gone in summer, maybe two, depending on the size of the road project. But ultimately, those hours help them accommodate to provide it all at one time, and the years help accommodate if business is slow and they can't get the gravel out. Sure.
Anything else for Mr. Weisenhunt? All right, I've got a few questions. So the 4-acre area that the mining is limited to is outside of the DEC's preliminary protection area, correct?
Let me pull up a quick map and we can get on the same page. Literally and figuratively.
Mr. Weisenhunt,
Okay.
I kind of know the answer.
Okay, so I'm going to point you to, with all that effort, I got to get to the page, right? With all that delay. Page 259, it shows I have overlaid their proposed mining area and the approximate location of the ADC provisional. So yes, they do overlay one another. They do intersect.
Okay, and what authority does the borough have for enforcing guidelines from DEC?
That's a great question. So we're charged with the health, public, and safety of the community. We specifically have standards that say, hey, is this going to potentially impact the public health, safety, and welfare? And if there's a protection area that could be contaminated and something that the borough approves, if that may impact the health, safety, and welfare of those people drinking the water from that well.
Okay, so we're going to, based on a provisional protection area, which is a circle drawn around a well, which is not at all accurate from a hydrogeologic standpoint, we're going to limit their mining to not include that area, which they already said they don't need to mine. What happens when that protection area gets updated? Because it will most certainly look like the other protection areas in there and elongated towards the mountains.
Well, would you like the long answer?
You got till midnight.
So that's right. So in our talks with DEC, the Community Drinking Water Division, it sounds like they don't have staff to finish any of these preliminaries. So it's my understanding from them that they have no intention on updating this as of today. Well, I should say as of 45 days ago when I talked to them. But yes, that could be an issue later on. Let's say this gets approved today. But the challenge is we have to go on the data that we have today. We have to make a decision on what's before us today.
Okay, so if they're already mining outside of the area, why is the staff recommendation to have a surveyor mark the protection area at additional cost to the applicant?
So if they don't mark it, then they will mine within it because it overlaps.
Doesn't that figure show the area that's already been mined?
Well, it certainly has a stockpile of topsoil there, but I don't know exactly how close that is. And I don't know if it fully encompasses it, if it's only part, but ultimately have to go off their site plan, and their site plan says they propose to mine within that.
Okay, so theoretically, if as part of their development for this property, they needed to lower the elevation within the groundwater protection zone, they could mine additional material out of the approved mining area, sell that, and move material from the protection zone to where they dug the hole on the mine. And because they're not selling it and extracting it, it wouldn't be prohibited.
You are absolutely correct.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Weisenhunt? All right, we have no applicant, so I guess we will move to public hearing. I hereby open the public hearing on PC Resolution 22-02. You're up.
Okay, now for this one, I believe I get 5 minutes, I think, because I'm now I'm official.
We got it.
Okay.
Alex is on it.
Okay, so as you adjust this upwards a little bit here. So at our last community council meeting which is the community council for the affected area. By the way, again, I'm Theron Bear, spelled the same as last time, president of the North Lakes Community Council. At our last community council meeting, we received notice of this public comment period, and we had some input. So at that meeting, we elected to pass a resolution to communicate that input to the Planning Commission, which you see before you. And so the identified concerns so far were traffic largely. That was the biggest one. So traffic is, obviously along Bogard is a worsening problem, and particularly at certain times of day, in the morning for morning rush hour and for evening rush hour. Any of my, I don't know if anybody else here lives off Engstrom. It's horrible. So, but there are certainly other traffic concerns elsewhere along the corridor as well. And actually, our understanding it was 200 trucks, but within the packet here, as I was examining here, I believe it says up to 750 vehicles a day potentially for this proposed traffic route and traffic. So based on that. And there was concerns about noise, there was concerns about dust with people who live nearby, and as well as the permit length for 10 years. So our resolution is that we object to the issuance of this permit as requested, unless the permit length is reduced to 5 years, and unless the hours of operation restriction is changed from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on weekdays and 9 to 5 p.m. on Saturdays, which should miss the biggest chunks on both sides of rush hour time. Now, my understanding, I believe, Mark, you said they are not routing this through. They're not routing this down Bogard. They're routing it the other way 100% of the time. And well, it's still within our community council area, so we're still objecting to it. But that is our resolution, and that's our public comment. And that's the news, and I am out of here.
All right. Are there any other members of the audience that would like to speak to Resolution PC 22-24? Seeing none, do we have anyone online who would like to speak? We want to hear from the applicant. All right. You have 15 minutes to explain your plans and address any comments that were made in public. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is John Summer from AK Frontier Rentals. I am the applicant. I'm sorry for being late. I had this on my schedule for the first time it was supposed to be heard before the commission. So I'm sorry about that. And I'd just like to answer any questions that you guys have. I think the application is very clear and about what we're intending to do on the site. I guess I would say our overall plan is not to operate a gravel pit for, 8 years or 7 years or whatever. Our plan is to develop the site. So we have, level lots, and it's all terraced. We have one building going in right now, and that's, a typical size building that you'll see on this parcel if we're able to get the gravel out of there and level the sites off. So the overall plan is a development, commercial development. So it's not a gravel pit, but we have to get the gravel off in order to make that happen. So, and we need the permit in order to get the gravel. And our intention is to get it off fast, road jobs. We are a general contractor as well. And it's our plan to take the gravel off, very fast and get it done and all leveled off and looking good. So that's all I got to say. Any questions?
Any questions from commissioners for the applicant? Commissioner Allen?
Yes, sir. So when you say very fast, do you mean 1 summer, 2 summers?
I think Mark already addressed this a little bit. If we get a big job, there's, I think we said 40 to 60,000 yards there. And if we get one good sized job, say Seward Meridian extension, it's all gone for that project, or if we're able to supply the gravel to one of the bigger general contractors. So it kind of depends on the market out there and what, public, jobs are bidding and when they bid. So I can't tell you. That's why we wanted to put a longer term in there, just to service those type projects, which is our business. So our business is not to sell to the general public either. So you're not going to see just, trucks every day, similar to our other gravel source on Herman Road. We haven't hauled out of there in five or 6 years. We're waiting on a project to mine that gravel, which is going to be the road that's going to go right through it. So that's our strategy, is just get the permits and wait for the projects.
Commissioner Chesbro?
Hi. So we had just recently served the resolution from the North Lakes Community Council, who is concerned about the noise, especially, and the traffic, and is suggesting that 11 to 3 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays would be better times that wouldn't disrupt the traffic so much or the noise so much. And I'm just wondering if you could respond to plus they would like to limit the number of years, but if you could just respond to those times, that would be helpful to me.
Limiting the haul out of that site between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. on weekdays. Is that what they're saying? We kind of need to get a full day of work when we go to haul out of there. So we need to be 7 to 7 pretty much, or somewhere around there, at least a 10-hour day, which is standard for work crews in the summer in Alaska. So if we had a 10 or a 12-hour day, I think that's what we need. Weekends, nights for sure. That's, we're not interested in working on at night. So that would be fine to limit it at night. Weekends, we'd like to work Saturdays for sure. Sundays would be fine to not work. So,
do you have any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Kendig?
I don't have a question for applicant. It's more for staff.
Go ahead.
The traffic noise time, I assume that all met code.
So the code does not allow an operation to exceed the standards. What it does ask is for mitigation measures, which includes berming, hours of operation, proximity to other developments, And so with with what's proposed and with staff's recommended conditions, staff does feel like it would meet the standards.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions? And technically, our public hearing is still open, so if there's any member of the audience who has not yet spoken who would like to speak to this matter? Seeing no one here, do we have someone online that would like to speak to Resolution PC 22-24?
Yes, this is Rod Hanson. My last name is Hanson. And what I was hearing, I was hoping to be there tonight, but couldn't make it. And what I was hearing, I think maybe just a little bit confusing. Mr. Weisenhunt talked about the applicant having met some concerns with regard to the exit and entrance to the property off of Bogard, which is the north-south section of Bogard right across from the Valley Country Store. And I believe he's correct in that there were some initial concerns about that have been fully addressed by the applicant, in that they are now accessing and entering the property really off of Selden to the west of that roundabout. And that is, that's great, because that is a concern, and I think it's been fully addressed. The concern that Mr. Theron Bear brought up from the North Lakes Community Council isn't really about that section of Bogard. It is about the section of Bogard between the roundabout at Selden to the east to Trunk Road. So there's about a 3-mile section of Bogard there. And the concern that community members have is that particular section of Bogard is already under-designed for the traffic load. There's as much traffic on that 3-mile section of Bogard as there is on the Palmer-Wasilla Highway, which has been designed for a much higher level of traffic with center turn lanes and stoplights and provisions for managing traffic. This particular 3-mile stretch of Bogard, though, is particularly concerning. There are multiple schools along that route that, early in the morning and late in the afternoon are putting students, teachers, and parents on that road. The concern is really not so much with the hours of operation of the gravel extraction on the property. The concern is with the hours of operation of truck traffic on that 3-mile section of Bogard that runs east and west between Trunk and Selden Road. The resolution that the council put forward to you is not suggesting changing business hours for the operation at the Frontier Plaza site. It is suggesting that they limit truck traffic to certain hours for that particular section of Bogard, and alternatively use different routing. For example, going out of the property, working their way on Bogard to Seward Meridian down to the Palmer-Wasilla Highway, and using the Palmer-Wasilla Highway as the primary east-west route for any truck traffic, rather than putting all of those trucks on that 3-mile section of Bogard. So I just wanted to make sure that the council understood the concerns that were being put forward. It's not about that section of Bogard across from the Valley Country Store. It's about the 3 miles between those two cul-de-sacs that there have been multiple accidents and fatalities, and is a section of road that we really need to protect and try to limit danger on, not put that many more trucks.
Thank you,
there.
sir.
And that's why they suggested
your
hours.
3 minutes
Thank you.
are up. Thank you. Do we have anyone else online that would like to speak? All right. Is there any objection to closing the public hearing for PC Resolution 22-24? Hearing and seeing none, public hearing is closed. I will now entertain a motion.
I move Resolution 22-24.
Thank you, Commissioner Kendig. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. It's been moved by Commissioner Kendig and seconded by Commissioner Scoggin. Commissioner Kendig, any comment?
Obviously, it needs to be moved out for development. It would be nice if they did get a a large road project, and that was done quickly, then it'd be done. I'd hate to see any limitations because likelihood that they would get a big project, and then it's done in a year, possibly two, instead of dragging on 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Commissioner Scoggin, any comment?
Yeah, I think the heavy traffic area, the area of most concern for people, traffic, you're actually trucking that gravel to one of the larger pits, you know, in the Palmos or the Trunk and Bogart or Sullivan Road area. I wouldn't see gravel go in that direction. I think it'd go the other way, to be honest with you, just based on my knowledge of gravel pits and trying to find the closest one. I think they're going to go toward Wasilla, not toward Palmer, most likely. That's all I got.
Any other discussion from the commission? Commissioner Chesbro?
I think it's a dilemma because you have all that gravel sitting there. It must be blowing around a little bit too, doesn't it? And dust in the neighborhood and those kinds of things. So it's a difficult problem when you're talking about trucking from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, though, I think, on many levels. So it's hard for me to, I mean, it's obviously a dilemma. So I don't know what I'm thinking at this point. Thank you.
Any other comments? I just like to say I concur with Commissioner Scoggin. I don't see it being economical to truck that direction right past Central Pit and the other sources there, because gravel's all about your trucking cost. It's not about the gravel cost. And you know, this site was high. It needed to be brought down to be developed. I think the need for the permit's kind of a unintended consequence. This isn't the kind of thing it was meant to do, but here we are. So if there's no further commissioner comments, is there any opposition to PC Resolution 22-24 as written? Seeing and hearing none, PC Resolution 22-24 passes as written. All right, on to public hearings for legislative matters. Resolution of the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Planning Commission recommending the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Assembly move to repeal MSB 17.10 overlay districts. Staff, Ms. Anderson. Wow, Johnny on the spot.
Yep. Hello again. So I think with overlay district repeal, I just wanted to give a brief history of why the code was created, kind of what has been the subsequent action of it being created, and then kind of our updated solution to the code and why we think it would be appropriate for the Assembly to repeal it. So the MSB 1710 overlay districts was adopted in 2018. The goal of overlay districts was essentially to develop a map, a geographical representation surrounding airports within the borough so that interested parties, property owners, people who were looking to buy property could see where an airport existed and make a determination by themselves as to whether or not they wanted to buy that property. This kind of came about from two separate things. The borough's long-range transportation plan contains a recommendation for the borough to support airport compatibility when considering things like roads, schools, and where to place their public infrastructure. Really just thinking about compatible land use issues. The second was that in 2017, the Wolf Lake Aviation Advisory Committee came to the borough and asked us to provide for them a map that showed kind of an overlay of the aviation activity that happened on their lake. I believe that there was a new subdivision that was coming in, and they wanted an opportunity to notify new property owners that there was a lot of aviation activity on that lake. At that time, the borough wasn't really able to provide a simple map that showed this is, you know, aviation overlay district, and there wasn't really a good avenue to provide that to the general public. So they came up with MSB 1710. What it did is it divided airports within the borough into 4 different classifications. I'm not going to get into the specifics of those, but essentially for notifying the public, the first 3 categories had explicit areas that were supposed to be noticed. And by noticed, I just mean that it was put upon the borough to send out a flyer to all the people that were in that notice area. There was a 4th category. It was essentially the privately owned restricted use airports, where it was required that instead of having this standardized, 5,000 feet from the runway sort of notification area, it was supposed to be developed on a case-by-case basis. So since the code was adopted in 2018, there's actually only been one successful attempt at an aviation overlay district, and that is Wolf Lake, that was adopted at the time of the code adoption. The second attempt was done in 2019, and it was for one of those privately owned restricted use where we had to do a case-by-case analysis. What that included was having a planner look at things like flight paths, takeoffs and landings, and other things that are far beyond the scope of any regular planner, to come up with an equation that gave us a notification area. It was an intense use of staff time, and it actually didn't even end up being adopted by the assembly. So at this point, we looked back and we're like, well, what the original intent was a map. And so we came up with an online map that people can now use. So me and some of my coworkers developed a land use and regulation online viewer. And we added in the FAA registered airports layer. So at this point, any resident within the borough who's interested can go to this map. It's already online on the Mat-Su webpage. And they can essentially look up a property that they own or that they're interested in buying. They can use a little buffer that we created up to 5 miles, and they can see if there's any sort of airport or aviation activity that is happening within 5 miles of that property. So because the map now exists, and because the code as written really didn't provide the actual meaning behind what people were looking for as far as public notice goes, we feel as though we've kind of met the need to notice the public about aviation activity regarding a parcel and regarding that compatible land use. So yeah, I would welcome any questions at this point about why we want to repeal MSB 1710.
Do you have any questions for Ms. Anderson? All right, I've got one. Being a bit older, I had to go back to school to learn how to use GIS minimally. I haven't looked at this map specifically, but is there concern about older residents in the borough who don't have the savvy for getting online, looking up GIS layers, those sorts of things? Are they kind of excluded now?
That is a good question. I need to think on it for a minute. The first thing that's coming to mind with this is mostly the fact that this is not a piece of code that's actually being used. And the one time that we tried to use it, it was unsuccessful. So I do think that if someone was interested in buying a parcel and was curious about aviation activity, they would be able to call us and we would be able to tell them, oh, I'll look that up for you, and here's what's within 5 miles or a mile of your parcel, in a way that would actually be more efficient than had they asked us to come up with an equation to figure out if they are within the notification area and then wait for an actual notification that the borough would send out.
Okay. And as a follow-on, are you familiar with Alaska Mapper?
Yeah, I'm very familiar.
It would be really great if the borough could set it up more in a system like that, because I find myself hunting and looking for borough maps on the
You find
webpage.
Alaska Mapper is
I love
useful
it.
and easy to.
I use it
Sorry,
every
I'm
day.
a former DNR employee, so I'm very familiar with Alaska Mapper. Is there an aviation layer to Alaska Mapper?
No, I'm just saying the way it's one main page and then everything's there. You can pull up the mining map. You can pull up the wells map
Oh,
instead of, okay, here we've got my property and here we've got zoning and here we've got like Anchorage GIS.
yes.
You go to their GIS page and there's 200 maps. It's like, I don't know
So
what's on which
I
one.
will say that we, our department right now is in the midst of a like full overhaul on the planning department website in an effort to make it way more useful to users as far as like finding the interactive maps go and all of that kind of stuff. Like we're really working hard right now to get all of that information into one spot where people can easily go. Yeah.
All right, thank you. That probably wasn't quite appropriate right there, but any other questions
Whatever.
for staff? All right, hearing and seeing none. I will now open the public hearing for PC Resolution 22-19. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to Resolution 22-19? Is there anybody online? All right, I won't. Is there any objection to closing public hearing for PC Resolution 22-19? Hearing and seeing none, public hearing is closed. I will now entertain a motion.
I move resolution 22-19.
All right, Commissioner Kendig. Is there-
I'll second.
Well, that's familiar. Commissioner Kendig?
Yeah, as staff said, it's not even being used. It seems like it's just a little complicated and something that we need to remove. So,
Commissioner Chesbro?
I agree. I remember when we did it, so now we have to undo it. Thanks.
Any other commissioner comments? Any objection to approving PC Resolution 22-19 as written? Hearing and seeing none, our code just got a little shorter. All right, Resolution 22-23. I can't wait till we get in the 30s. Resolution of the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Planning Commission recommending the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Assembly move to repeal MSB 17.06 electrical generating and delivery facility in its entirety. Staff is Mr. Strawn. Mr. Strawn, entertain us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me get a little closer to this microphone. So back in the early 2000s, you may recall that MEA was planning on putting a coal-fired power plant within the borough. There were some regulations that were adopted to address electric generation facilities, and shortly after those regulations were adopted, MEA decided to move their electric generating facility just outside of the borough, where it currently is today. Back in 2014, the Assembly directed staff to overhaul the regulations to make them less onerous than the ones that were originally adopted. I was actually part of that working group. There were a few people on there that you'd probably recognize their names. Corey Feige being one of them, Berkeley Tilton. Chris Elder was on the committee, who was on this planning commission for a while. And what we end up doing is taking the code out of Title 8, which is health and welfare, and putting it within our zoning code and making it more in line with our other conditional use permits. It has some basically like 5 basic standards. Says it has to be in line with the comprehensive plan. It has to be compatible with the area that it's going into. They have to look for a few different things that they have to do in order to get approved, and has a basic conditional use permit process. And then that's been in place since 2014. And then recently, Assemblymember Sumner approached the attorney's office asking that this be repealed. The attorney's office wrote the ordinance and informational memorandum, and the justification for this ordinance is contained therein. And here we are today. I'll answer any questions you have.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Strawn?
What significant changes would if it was to be repealed? That we're currently doing today.
So you're asking if this ordinance were to be adopted, what would be the significant change? It would go from having a conditional use permit process to not having one. Yeah.
Any other questions, Commissioner Chesbro?
So my question is, what kind of, one of the concerns is it would hamper the future development of alternative energy and that this would impact energy prices. Could you explain sort of the thinking behind that? Because I would think that maybe that might not be the case. I don't know.
I think, this ordinance and IM was written by the attorney's office, so I may defer some of that, but I would say that this section of code is non-discriminatory, whether it's burning oil or burning natural gas or burning, or capturing rays of the sun. It doesn't matter. If it's over 10 megawatts, it's regulated. And if it's under, it's not.
Can I ask one more question? So this in effect eliminates public comment on this generating energy, right?
Correct. If this ordinance were to pass as is, there'd be no public process for the placement of electric generation facility plants.
For anyone, correct? Somebody could come in and put it on their land and nobody would be able to say anything.
The borough wouldn't have a process.
Yeah, thank you.
So, and just to be clear, that's for anything over 10 megawatts.
That's correct. This only applies for.
And the only thing currently on the books now is that we just had the 1 megawatt solar farm in Willow, and now is that 5 megawatts they're looking to put in Houston, although it wouldn't apply because it's in the Houston city limits. But that seems to be the only power generation that's really, really on the radar today.
Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, I guess my concern is, reading this and is that this is a solution in search of a problem. I mean, is this really an issue? How arduous is this for people to go through the public comment? I mean, is this jammed up a bunch of energy projects? I mean, what's the real problem here that industry feels need to be fixed?
I don't know how to answer that question, to be honest. If it did jam up some electric generation projects, I wouldn't know about it because they didn't come. It's very similar to a gravel pit or a tower or any other conditional use permit that would come before this body is what the current code is.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else, just a couple of quick questions. So as part of a new power plant through the RCA process and everything, there is a public process for that, correct? It's just not through the borough?
Denise, did you do any research on the RCA and how it affects electric generation facilities?
I can't imagine you can build a power plant without anybody noticing.
I did not do any specific research, but I do know that there is a public process that's involved on the state level. This is just would only affect the borough level of the public process.
And you are correct. It would have to go through the RCA.
Thank you. And I guess I'll save it for when there's a motion. Any other questions for Mr. Strawn? All right.
Can I ask one more question based on that? So if they, how public is that RCA process? I mean, how is that notified and how engaged are people in that public process versus this one, which seems more local?
I might be able to help you. Just from my experience, I've been through quite a few RCA meetings. All the utilities are involved. REAP and other, and the independent power producers, they're always packed in those meetings and everybody gets a say so. It's pretty well balanced. And they're now developing another layer. It's called the Regulatory Commission, the RRC. I'm terrible with acronyms, so but they have the RRC, which is going to be another governing body, another layer that's going to come into play, because the big thing now is lower carbon. And the fight is, how do we lower the carbon footprint and keep rates without raising rates through the ceiling? So, but yeah, there is a big process with the RRC and everybody, utilities.
Commissioner Kendig, we should save our discussion for when there's a motion.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, or would you like to hear from staff? Okay. We'll now open the public hearing on PC Resolution 22-23. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak about PC Resolution 22-23? Is there anyone online? All right. Is there any objection to closing public hearing on PC Resolution 22-23? Hearing and seeing none, public hearing is closed. I will entertain a motion.
I move Resolution 22-23.
All right, Commissioner Kendig has moved. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, familiar. Commissioner Kendig, do you have any comments?
Well, I'm in favor of the resolution because just with my experience with the solar farms, and none of them are really, I don't see anything in the near future anyway, that are going over 10 megawatts. But it does slow their process down. And it does hurt their ability to bring in investors. If the longer the process drags out, the harder it is for them to attract investment. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Chesbro?
Well, I really do worry about limiting public process. I understand what you're saying about the groups meeting, but I'm not sure that the people who live around there or the people, I mean, I just feel like, it's good to let people, at least allow people to have a say, whether, I mean, I can't imagine that it drags it out that much longer than like the big process. So I guess I'm for as much as we can do local public process, I am for that, so.
Any other commissioner discussion? Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, I guess I just have to say I agree with Commissioner Chesbro about the public process. And to me, there'd have to be a really compelling reason. If industry were here and they were to give us some really compelling reasons and some examples about how it's really jammed up their progress, then I'd be willing to hear that. But nobody's made that case.
Any other commissioner comments? I'd just like to say I've been involved in a number of hydroelectric projects in the borough, the small scale independent stuff, and none of them have approached 10 megawatts. 10 megawatts is a fair amount of power. I agree about the local public process. At the same time, we've got an electric co-op. We all knew about that plant going in Eklutna, even though it's not in the borough. So I'm kind of conflicted as to whether we need the additional regulation, because I'm sure we'll all hear about it long before it happens. So I'm not sure. That being said, no more commissioner comments. Is there any objection to PC Resolution 22-23? All right, looks like we're going to have a vote. Commissioner Chesbro has objected.
The motion fails with a 3-4 vote.
All right, do we need to read into the record who voted what?
Commissioner Chesbro, Commissioner Scoggin, Commissioner Allen and Commissioner Glassman voted no.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, so looks like we're moving on to unfinished business.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So I think it's important that when the Planning Commission takes a stance on something, whether it's for approval or denial, based, on a legislative matter, the way that you communicate with the Assembly is via resolution. We've run into this before where the Planning Commission fails to adopt a resolution, but that doesn't really send any message other than you didn't vote for that particular resolution. I think it would be a good practice for this Planning Commission to adopt a resolution expressing why you do not support the ordinance as written, so that that can go to the Assembly in their packet.
When does this matter before the Assembly? Is it scheduled?
This was referred for 90 days. Do we know what day it's going to back to the Assembly?
So we can address that at the next meeting.
Yeah, and we can do, we have under unfinished business lake management plans, which is a similar situation where a resolution was denied or not approved. So we created a resolution that you could consider that would recommend denial of it. And we can do the same thing based on your comments here tonight, but I would recommend that you sort of, I guess there already has been some testimony as to why you support it or don't support it, but it sure is helpful for us when you make it very clear so that we can help you prepare that.
It's set for the October 4th. So it's due back to them by September 19th. So there's time to put together that resolution if
All
you'd
right,
like.
so for the next meeting, can we put on the agenda unfinished business? A new resolution that basically says if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
Sure. And then if you have any points that you'd like to make that goes on that resolution, if you could email that to the clerk, that'd be very helpful for us putting it together. And even if you did not support, or if you supported the resolution, we certainly can capture the people who supported the ordinance as well in the resolution, saying this was the vote and here's who supported it and why. But any information that you want to go in that resolution would be helpful for the clerk and myself to put that together.
Thank you. All right, now we will move on to unfinished business. We have a new resolution, PC 22-27, resolution of the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Planning Commission recommending denial of the Beverly Lake Management Plan. We don't have a hearing, but we do have a resolution. So I guess we'll start. Is there a motion to approve PC 22-27?
Also move.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Allen has moved. Commissioner Kendig is seconded. Commissioner Allen, any comment?
Just out of curiosity, who drafted the proposed resolution? Was that staff or was that somebody, fellow commissioner here?
That was staff.
Okay.
Based on the comments.
Thank you. It was down and dirty and to the point. I think it conveys, I think, the message. So I support it. Thank you.
Commissioner Kendig is the second.
Yeah, I just echo.
All right, any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Chesbro?
I'd like to make an amendment, if I could, to one of the whereases, or two of the whereases, but I'd start with the first one. I would like to change the third whereas that says a small group of homeowners were deciding what rights to the lake were allowed for a lake that has public access. I would like to say, whereas 54% of the voters approved the plan, including 52% of lakefront owners. Because that's really accurate. It said this just says a small group, and actually it was more than 50%. And I just think if we could just put the number down, that's more accurate. So I would move to amend, including that language for that third whereas.
Commissioner Chesbro. So I have 54% of voters approve the plan, including, and then I couldn't keep up.
Including 52% of lakefront owners.
And is that eliminating the rest of the language that's in there?
Yeah, just supplanting that language with whereas, because it doesn't, it's more specific.
Okay, so I have it up on the screen. If you could look at that and see if that matches what you're going for.
Yeah. That's what, yeah, that's the.
All right, so there's been a proposed amendment to PC Resolution 22-27. Is there a second for the amendment? All right, look the other way, Robert. I'll second it.
Okay.
All right, is there any discussion as the maker of the amendment, Commissioner Chesbro?
I would just say again that it's hard, when we say a small group of homeowners, that implies that it's fewer than 50%, I believe. It was more than 50%, so I think we at least need to say that. It was more than, this is the number that approved it. So.
And as the second, I agree. I mean, in all actuality, there's a small group of homeowners on the lake in its entirety. So let's make it reflect more accurately what happened.
My comment, I guess, I don't have a problem really with that part, but the reference to, taking out the reference to the fact that it's a public, that it has a lake with public access, that seems pretty substantial. That seems like that was an important part of the whereas. I'd like to see it still incorporate the public access part if possible.
Commissioner Chesbro,
could we add a whereas to say this is a lake that has public access, because that is kind of a separate thing, actually.
I agree with you. Yeah, that would be fine. That would certainly be acceptable to me. I just thought that reference was smart and made sense to me. The public access reference.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
So do you want to amend your original?
I would
just
amend
to keep
it
to
to say then to add a second whereas to this that would say whereas this lake has public access.
Okay. Dedicated public access?
Has what? Dedicated?
Yeah.
That's fine. Sure. Aren't they all? Don't they all have?
All right, so I'll second the amended amendment. That is still the First Amendment. Any other discussion on the amendment on the table? Commissioner Scoggin?
I have one comment. Maybe I misunderstood the person, but one person owned multiple pieces of property and voted multiple times. And that doesn't reflect what we're putting up there. I don't think that the vote was just all that ironclad and well managed. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I just feel like it. I live in that area. I talk to people that there's people that told me whether, I don't know, they ranked this, they had ranked the ranked choice voting system. They did rank the middle. I think that my understanding is probably a lot more people that went to the middle, just from the few people I heard comments from. And I understood that no one voted for the middle. So I really don't know, putting a number up there is really, how official is that? I mean, I guess I don't know. When one person votes multiple times, I can't vote multiple times in any election. And I can vote multiple times a borough if I own multiple pieces of property. So I don't know that the numbers are relevant, I guess.
I'll jump. I mean, and I know homeowners associations are rare up here, but I've got one at my cabin of all places. And having a vote per lot owned is pretty common in those types of agreements. And that's the way the plan, the statute or the code is written, is each lot gets a vote. And if it's the same owner, it's the same owner. So I don't see that it's inaccurate. I think my problem is a small group, calling it a small group when it's something that we can quantify. If we said the majority of voters or something, rather than just a small group, is my opinion. But I mean, we're discussing the amendment.
Yeah, I guess, but those numbers, if someone votes multiple times, that doesn't, it's not the voters, it's the property owners, maybe based on, it shouldn't be the voters because that's a person. It should be 50% of the lots voted one way or, that's how it should be, not
What about
voters.
54% of the votes?
I feel it needs to be removed from the people because it's not, the overwhelming majority of the people most likely didn't vote in favor of it. But the overwhelming majority of the lots, if you will, the land, each individual piece of property, it's not.
The one lady who's the bird watcher got 7 votes, right? Isn't that what happened?
I think,
And she doesn't live on the lake, right?
and one lady doesn't live on the lake that had the most votes, that admitted having the most votes, but I don't know that. Yeah.
Right. The other part, we didn't talk about this at the meeting, but something maybe we can discuss now. But if I understood this correctly, the system got changed to a ranked vote system sort of midstream, and that seemed very bizarre to me. That staff made a unilateral decision to change the way the voting would happen.
Well, we're not here to talk about the process.
Well,
we're here to talk about what message we want to send to the assembly based on what happened. And if that is something that we want to recommend a change to the actual process, we can do that as an amendment.
I just think we want to Commissioner Scoggins' point, we want to accurately reflect what did happen, what the process was. I mean, that's all I'm getting at.
That's what happened.
Commissioner Chesbro?
And the process allows for people to vote for the number of lots, one time for the number of lots they have. So is it accurate, would you say, to say 54% of the votes approved the plan? Even if it was 5 people and they had all the votes. I don't know. Isn't that the accurate way to say that? When you say a small group, it's hard to know what that means. That's a small group of people you're talking about. So if we're going to really, I don't know, it's a challenge. How would you change it, I guess?
We don't get to vote on wealth or land ownership. It's just individual, in any other election. So I don't think if there were, I don't know how many votes per household too. Each lot. So if there potentially could have been 4 or 5 votes coming from one household. We don't know. It's just kind of it's an awful loose system. And then to put in their voters, it wasn't like anybody was trying to hide the fact that they voted multiple times on their properties, but how many,
Again,
I don't think it was a very controlled system. I don't think that
we're not debating the process. We're debating the message.
This is what we're debating up here, and you're saying voters, but it's not voters. It's property. It's based on the property, not the voters.
Right. So each lot gets 1 vote. So would 54% of the votes? Okay.
I don't believe so. It's not.
All right. Do we have any more discussion on the amendment? Is there opposition to the amendment as written?
Yeah.
All right. We'll take a vote on the amendment. A yes vote would change the third whereas to 54% of voters approve the plan, including 52% of lakefront owners, removing a small group of homeowners. We're deciding what rights the lake were allowed for a lake that has public access, and then adds in a whereas this lake has a dedicated public access. So a yes vote would be to change it. A no vote would be to leave it as written. Yes.
The primary amendment passes with Commissioner Rubio, Commissioner Scoggin, and Commissioner Kendig in opposition.
All right, so we are back to the main motion main resolution as amended. Do we have any other motions, perhaps to convey something about the process that was undertaken?
Well, mine isn't that, but I have another one.
All right, Commissioner Chesbro.
And it would be the next one, where it says whereas having a lake management plan may have a negative effect on property values. I would change that to say where some who testified believed adoption of the plan would decrease property values.
Commissioner Kendig?
Yeah, it was some of the people, it was their belief, but the appraisers weighed in and
We're not in discussion yet. Is that amendment, does the screen reflect what you? Does the screen reflect what you intended with your amendment? All right, is there a second to this amendment to add some who testified believe having a lake management plan may have a negative effect? All right, there is no second, so that amendment will not be part of the plan. So we are back to the main resolution as amended. Do we have any further amendments to the resolution? All right, hearing and seeing none, do we have any opposition to approving the amended resolution PC 22-27? Commissioner Chesbro? Looks like we're keeping the voting machines busy tonight. So an affirmative vote would pass resolution PC 22-27 to the Assembly, indicating our thoughts on why we denied the Beverly Lakes Management Plan. A no vote leaves the Assembly in the dark unless they listen to all of these minutes.
The motion passes with amendments with Commissioner Chesbro and Glenn in opposition.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I guess resolution PC 22-27 is closed, and I didn't add a gavel, but feels like the right thing. Commissioner Strawn, do you have any upcoming commission business you'd like to enlighten us on?
It sounds like we might have a hot one on this next meeting here. But as always, we provided a copy of all the upcoming quasi-judicial items as well as legislative items. Please refrain from discussion on the quasi-judicial items, as they very well will be coming forward to this body sometime soon.
All right. Mr. Strawn, do you have any closing comments?
Nope.
Nope. Madam Clerk?
No, thank you.
Any other staff have something to say?
So we are happy to announce that we have a new attorney in our office, and continuing with the inability to pronounce last names, and a requirement in our office is that you have a long unpronounceable last name. This is Hannah, and I'll let her pronounce her last name for you.
Hi, my name is Hannah Steketty.
Hannah Z?
Hannah Steketty. 4 E's, 2 T's. That's okay.
So you can continue with the first names if you would like. That's all.
I like the way planning department does it. Anderson, I can say that.
Right? Can you tell us where you come to us from? And
Yeah, I'm from West Virginia. I graduated West Virginia University Law School in 2020, and I spent the last 2 years cooking for Judge Woodman over at the courthouse and started.
Thank you. Welcome to the Borough.
All right. Any other staff comments? Okay. Commissioner Scoggin. Commissioner Chesbro?
I've talked too much tonight, so no.
Commissioner Glenn?
No comment.
No comment.
Commissioner Allen?
No comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Kendig?
Nothing this evening.
All right. Well, with that, we are adjourned at 7:45 p.m.